Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be comparing my 2024 BMW M2 to my newly acquired 2022 Toyota Supra. In this video we're going to be comparing the interior, the exterior, the exhaust, the way it drives, and then we might throw in, just for fun, a little bonus race at the end. So definitely stay tuned for that. But first off, starting in the front, obviously the M2 and the Supra look completely different. The Supra is a little bit more curvy, M2 is a lot more boxy. They're both pretty small, but the M2 does look a lot bigger than the Supra in terms of how wide it is, and it does sit up a little higher, so you guys can see where both of the roof lines are at. Coming down the side here, both of them have LED headlights. The M2 does have a cornering light, and then the headlights are adaptive. They both have LED daytime running lights. They both have front and rear parking sensors. Coming down the side, the M2 comes stock with Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires. They have 275 front, 285 rear, 19 and 20. And then for the Supra, they come stock with Michelin Pilot Super Sports, which are a little bit of an older school design than the newer Pilot Sport 4S tires. These are 255, 35, 19 in the front, and then 275, 35, 19 in the rear. You can see the Supra has the red caliper right there. And then the M2 also has a red caliper. The brake discs are a little bit bigger, and they have the drilled rotors instead of just a solid rotor like on the Supra. Looking at the rear, you can see they're completely different, right? The Supra is kind of more of like a hatchback design. The M2 has like a normal trunk and also has rear seats, but all LED lighting. The Supra has the dual exhaust out each side, and then the M2 has the quad exhaust tips out the rear. This one has the S58 engine, which we'll hear in just a second. This one has the B58 engine. And speaking of engines, let's go ahead and pop the hood. All right, guys, just pop the hood on both. Let's check out the Supra first. So with the Supra, comes with the B58 engine. It comes stock with 382 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque. It has the ZF 8-speed automatic. This one does have a few bolt-ons like these charge pipes here and this Mishimoto intake. Looking over at the M2, it's not clean right now, but this has the S58 engine, which is a twin turbo instead of a single turbo. It comes with 453 horsepower stock and 406 pound-feet of torque, but I recently did the M2 CS DME flash, so now it has 523 horsepower and 479 pound-feet of torque. And no aftermarket mods under here, still stock intake and everything like that. All right, give it a few revs in normal. Now try sport mode. All right, so the Supra obviously sounds pretty good with the catted downpipe and also the X-Force Catback exhaust from Magnaflow. So now we're going to see how the M2 sounds with the stock system and the MAD single non-resonated mid-pipe. All right, try a few revs in the normal. And then press M2 twice on the steering wheel. Now try again. So I think both of them sound pretty good, honestly. All right, guys, and before we check out the inside, we're gonna check out the trunk on both so you guys can see the different trunk space. The Supra first. So as you can tell, it's completely open to the top. It does have this little cover right here, but it is kind of like a hatchback design, and you can fit a decent bit of stuff in here. And then looking at the M2, it's a normal trunk design, and that's also a pretty decent sized trunk as well. So I'd say the M2 is a little bit deeper, a little bit wider, but this one does have the flexibility of having the hatch on it and being able to load like some taller stuff, and it is open to the front seats, which is kind of cool. All right, guys, let's go ahead and drive both cars. We're gonna start in the Supra. Has a nice startup with some burbles when it starts. All right, so the shifter design is a little bit different as well. So you just go all the way back for drive, and then you got the parking brake. And just sitting in here, like, it's definitely a much tighter feel, like the dash is like really close to you. There's not a ton of room to like move your legs around. That kind of adds to like the sporty feel of the car. Trans is very smooth off the get-go. Sounds good. It shifts very early. So when you're in the normal mode, this car just really wants to get into that 8th gear. And I think that's part of the reason why it gets such good gas mileage when you're driving conservative, of course. Has a ton of torque. It was shifting at like 4,500 and it's still pulling really strong. We're gonna go ahead and try out the sport mode now. So now we're in sport mode and we'll turn off our traction control as well. And it's still in automatic. Tons of low end torque with the B58 engine. Brakes feel great, they're nice and strong. Good pedal feel and everything. It's doing downshifts for me. Okay, we're gonna take off here. This car does get sideways, and it gets sideways very nicely. We're going to test out the paddles here real quick. So I just flip the shifter over into manual mode, and now it's in full manual. Hear a lot of burbles when you downshift and pops. The exhaust is definitely very lively on this car with like all the pops and stuff that you get. Steering wheel is on the thinner side, but does feel good. This screen is kind of on the smaller side as well. I think it's an 8.8 inch screen, but when you're used to the one in the M2, it does look kind of on the smaller side. They both have wireless CarPlay though. I'd say kind of linear, honestly. Like it just, you feel the torque come on and just kind of stays there. Low RPM, tons of torque. Yeah, very impressive. So now we're at like 4,000 RPM. Very light on its feet. This is about 3,400 pounds. The M2 is about 3,800. Take this corner with a little bit of speed. It does the nice little shift farts when it shifts, which is kind of cool. Visibility out the front is not terrible. It is kind of a smaller windshield, but the side is where it kind of gets a little iffy because the window kind of curves down towards the end, especially if you're tall like me. Out the back is not bad. This one does have that big wing on it, so that's kind of a little bit in the way, but the visibility is not, I mean, I guess it's not the greatest, especially in comparison to the M2, but we're going to get in the M2 in just a moment. This car is very fun to just cruise around and use the paddles. The 8-speed is great, it shifts good. Yeah, very smooth. Alright guys, stepping aside the M2, the cabin is way more spacious. Like this car almost feels like a massive vehicle compared to the Supra with how much space there is in here. Tons of wiggle room, tons of room to my side. I have tons of headroom. Just definitely a much more spacious cabin. What do you think?
Yeah, this one feels a lot bigger, especially the leg room and the headroom, actually, both.
Yeah, it's much more spacious, Visibility is way better. It has these huge windows, huge front window, and then also the visibility at the back is actually, I'd say is not, I wouldn't say it's better than the Supra out the back, but visibility everywhere else is much better. And then obviously it has these really big screens here, these big HD screens. All right, guys, going to start up the M2. The push button start is down here on the M2. Completely different sound. No burbles and pops and stuff when it starts up. And a lot more settings and controls on this one. So the Supra is mainly just like, well, I guess you can do sport individual, but the Supra is mainly like sport mode or normal. The M2, if you click the setup button, you can see there's so many different things that you can change on the car. And the Supra has this too, but the M2, it just has more customizability. And then also you can choose the traction control. You can change it 0 through 10 depending on how much like traction you want. But shifter is also different. So you pop it to the side when you put in drive, right? And then neutral's over there, then reverses like that. So the shifter design's different. Back camera's a little bit bigger, a little bit better quality. But let's get going here. So right off the bat, it's also very smooth, just like the Supra. They both have the ZF 8-speed, but the one in the M2 is a more beefy version. I think it's the 8 HP 76, and then the one in the Supra I think is the 8 HP 51. So this one is rated to handle more power. One thing I will say, and it's probably because it still has the stock muffler on it, but when you have it in efficient mode, you don't really hear much of anything. Like, you're just cruising. The Supra with that exhaust that it has is still kind of loud even when you're in the normal mode. This one, I'm sure you can't really hear anything. What do you think about the ride between both of them? Do they both ride similar, or what do you think?
This one's more comfortable for sure. The other one, I feel like it has a stiffer suspension because you can feel all of the bumps, especially when you go through like these dips. You definitely feel it in the Supra versus the BMW.
Okay, so he's thinking that the suspension is a little bit more comfortable in the M2. I don't really know too big of a difference. I know in sport mode on both, they're both really stiff when you put them in the sport chassis setting. But we're just in efficient right now. We're gonna pop it over into, we'll do sport mode. And then this one has different transmission settings. So you can go from like level 1, level 2, and level 3 transmission. We're gonna go level 2 transmission right now. And see how that shifts. Very smooth. Definitely feels a little bit stronger than the Supra at the lower, or like towards the mid-range. Lower RPMs, the Supra feels very punchy, but this one, once the revs start to climb, you start noticing the extra power for sure. Because this one's putting down a lot more power than the Supra is. But it also weighs about 400 pounds more. But we're gonna go Sport Plus now, and then transmission level 3. So we're in the most aggressive setting right now. And we're gonna see how that performs. And then we'll also go to our traction control, because I know when the traction's on, it kind of cuts the power. We're gonna go DSC off, and we're gonna put it in we'll do level 5. So the traction's off, but we're in level 5. We'll put steering on sport and brake on sport. So now everything's kind of like in a sporty setting right now. So the M2 is a lot faster. M2's a little quicker.
Yeah, those brakes are really strong too.
Yeah,
that slowed us down
like
quick. Yeah, that was very quick.
I mean, it's not fair because this car does have the CS DME flash, but even stock, the M2 is still faster than the Supra. I actually did that race if you guys want to check it out on the channel. But now we're messing around with the paddles. Let's drop down to 40. M2, the power difference is massive and it's very noticeable. but the Supra is still very quick. So it's not to take anything away from the Supra, it's just the M2 is just so much faster. And again, it's a twin turbo S58, so you know it should be faster. When it's in the third setting, the shifting is very aggressive. You can really feel it shift. And then you can drop it down to setting number 2, and the shifts are still fast, but they don't buck the car anymore. So it's nice that you have so much like adjustability with the M2. The Supra still has its own bit of adjustability, but the M2 much more. The brakes feel good on both. The M2 brakes do feel a little stronger, but both of them have good brake pedal feel. I don't know how they'll be on track. I've never taken them on track, but M2 doesn't really do pops, it more does burbles in terms of like the exhaust. Very smooth with the ZF8 on this one as well. And suspension still feels nice when you have it in the comfort mode. When you put it in Sport Plus, it's very very stiff and not very enjoyable, honestly. But maybe that's better for track driving. Steering feel on both feel good. I'd say the Supra might feel a little bit stiffer, a little bit more connected than the M2 does. Going in here, I was talking with my brother about how they both compare. What were you saying about like the power difference and like the power delivery?
Yeah, so in the M2, when you initially take off, it doesn't hit really hard, but as it's gaining RPM and as it's going faster, the pull feels like stronger and stronger, whereas the Supra, it feels linear the whole way through.
Right, so what he was saying is like when the Supra, when you hit it, it kind of pushes you back and then just kind of stays there. This one doesn't like necessarily jam you back at the beginning, but as the revs climb and as it keeps building speed and RPM, it just pulls so much harder up top, which is normal for the S58. It is more of like a top-end type engine. All right, guys, and like I promised, we're gonna get one run in because there's no point in doing a bunch of runs. The M2 is so much faster. But just to demonstrate the difference, we're gonna get a run-in with the Supra, and then we're also gonna do a drive-by so you guys can hear how the exhaust sounds on both, like under load. All right, guys, we just got back driving the Supra and driving the M2 and comparing them. I'd say the Supra is a really fun car. It offers a little bit of a different experience than the M2, even though they're both, you know, inline six, they're both rear-wheel drive, they both have the ZF8 speed. They still drive completely different. So my brother was the one who was driving the Supra and helping me film. What'd you think of the Supra?
The Supra is actually really fun. It's, you know, you kind of ignore the bad visibility or maybe it doesn't feel as comfortable for like a daily, but just driving it and having fun with it, it's actually really fun. And I think it might even be more fun than the M2.
Okay.
As far as fun factor goes, it is really fun, even though it's not as fast.
Yeah, because this one's lightweight. It's 3,400 pounds. You know, it has a very usable amount of power. The M2 is, you know, much more power, but you know, it is 3,800 pounds. It's a little bit of a bigger vehicle, a little bit more spacious. Doesn't feel as like, you know, sports car-y as the you know, the Supra does. Because the Supra kind of feels like a Corvette or like a Viper. You know, it's a two-seater. It's tight. You know, you're sitting pretty much on the rear tire. And the M2 is more of like a, you know, just like a coupe that has a lot of power, basically. If you guys enjoyed this video, give it a like and subscribe. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one.